Let's take a look at the periodic table and choose out a cool element. Let's go with number 50, Sn, or should I say tin. The first time tin was used was during the Bronze Age in Mesopotamia. After using this, they realized that tin is much better for plates and other stuff to eat with. And after this, a lot of people stopped using pure copper for these stuff. And you should know that bronze is made with a mixture of tin and copper, a form of metal that's better than both. Bronze is better than copper and tin, and it's stronger. When they discovered tin, that's when the Bronze Age begins. During the Bronze Age, they would also mix arsenic with copper and tin. But after that, they realized that a lot of people are getting sick. They didn't know what is causing it, but they assumed it was the arsenic that was killing people. And they were right. So they stopped using arsenic and continued just mixing tin and copper together. And it's interesting to know that we've made a complete video about arsenic if you would like to see it. But let's talk about the metal itself. You saw where it's located on the periodic table. It's the 50th element. The short version is Sn. Where does Sn come from? The name Sn comes from the Latin word stannum, which is basically the meaning of tin, and it's nothing special like the other elements. Just like other metals, tin is a silverish, yellowish color to it, but this one is much softer, and you could bend it with your hand. When you take a piece of tin and start folding it back and forth, it starts crying. You have to know that tin is not the only metal that cries. Indium, cadmium, zinc, and mercury can also make this type of noise and cry. Where is tin found anyways? They usually mine tin with these two minerals, cassiterite and stannite. The density of tin is very similar to lead, which is pretty heavy, but its melting point is much lower, about 232 degrees centigrade. Unlike lead and other metals, tin is not toxic whatsoever, and that is why it was replaced with lead in soldering wire. Back in the day, they used lead for soldering wire, but it was very toxic, especially the smoke, but now it's tin. There is another form of tin which is called beta tin or white tin. The build of this metal is much different. At about minus 15 degrees centigrade, it basically kills itself. It turns into powder, specifically a gray type of powder, which is called gray tin or alpha tin. The powder you're seeing is gray tin. White tin and gray tin are very similar, but their build is different. Back in the day when they witnessed this, they would call it a tin plague. In the beginning of the 19th century, the buttons of the clothes were made with white tin, and most of Napoleon's army would have buttons made of white tin. When the army went somewhere cold like Russia, the button disintegrated and turns into alpha tin, and that means the metal was not there anymore and their clothes fell off. A lot of historians believe that this was the reason Napoleon was defeated in Russia, because their clothes couldn't stay together. This is tin chloride, and it has a white crystal look to it. To get this, you have to mix tin with hydrochloric acid. So we have this hydrochloric acid with the tin. If we add 10% sulfuric acid into it, you will get another form of liquid. When you add 1 ampere of electricity to it, the crystals will start to form and create an ice/snow looking effect. If you remove the electricity and add a piece of tin into this liquid, it will start spiking up and look like this. Right now, most of the tin in the world is used to make different alloys with different metals, but in some places it's used in pure form, like soldering wire, or other goods, like this candle holder. Right now, the most important thing tin is used for, to create bronze. And back in the day, it was the same thing. Most of the tin was used to make bronze. There are a lot of tin used in electronic components, but there is a huge problem with it. When you use tin on, like, for example, a motherboard, after some time, the tin can grow whiskers. And we're not joking. Things like hair start popping out of the tin, and this could cause circuit failure. It's good to know that there are some satellites in space that have been broken because of these tin whiskers, but they're just spinning around the Earth not working. But do you think scientists and engineers are just gonna sit back and let this happen to their product? They have to figure out what's the root cause of these whiskers. And they really figured it out. They realized if you add antimony and bismuth to the tin, the whiskers will stop forming on electronic components. So what are these two elements? Antimony is alkaline metal, and it's number 51 on the periodic table. Bismuth is right underneath in number 83, and it's a chemical element. Nowadays, if you buy some wire for soldering, they usually have these elements in there, plus the tin. But back in the day, a lot of these wires were used as pure tin. In the year 1810, a British man by the name of Peter Durand was always looking for ways to package foods for the English soldiers without them spoiling. He was basically imagining something to hold food like a canned container we have today. After plenty of tests, Peter Durand realizes that he could use tin for this idea, and Peter is able to create the first tin can. This name still remains on these cans. If you go to English-speaking countries, they still refer to anything that's canned as tin can foods. Even though it's not made from tin, it could be steel or aluminum, but the name still remains. Peter realized that this doesn't really corrode, and it doesn't affect the health of the soldiers. That is why he chose tin. You can find tin everywhere in the world, but there are some countries that export the most. The countries that are the biggest exporters of tin in the world are these 14, and China, Indonesia, and Myanmar blow everyone out the park. Right now, the price of tin is about $27 per kilogram, and this is the price graph of tin over the years. Around the year 2000, it was about $5 per kilo. It continues to go up and down, and when we hit Corona, it's about $15 per kilo. All of a sudden, it skyrockets, and it reached near $45 a kilo. And now it comes down around $27 a kilo. You have to know that there are a lot of people that buy and sell metals online like they do stocks and cryptocurrencies. You might ask, where do they buy and sell this? Unfortunately, I can't give you a website, but you could search online, trade metals, and you will find some suggestions on how to do it.